Good evening and welcome everyone to the Capgemini CSI's May webinar on adopting multi-speed uh, IT operating model. We are thrilled to have you join us today. In today's fast-moving and digitally enabled business ecosystems, organizations need IT operating models that not only complement traditional ways of working but also demonstrate flexibility and responsiveness to rapidly changing customer requirements. However, does every organization need agility across their entire portfolio? The answer might be no. Instead, they need to maintain stability at the core while being adaptable at the edges. This session will delve into how organizations can adopt multi speed IT operating models to achieve this balance. Our speaker today is Abhijit Sawanth, an L3 chief architect and multi tower ADM solution integrator with an impressive 27 years of experience. Abhijit has spent over a decade at Capgemini as a solution architect, bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise to the table. Additionally, he has led numerous successful digital transformation projects and is known for his innovative approach to integrating emerging technologies. Without further ado, let's dive into the session. And we'll take the questions at the end of the session. Abhijit, over to you.
You're on mute, Abhijit.
So you are on mute.
Oh, thanks. Sorry. So, thanks, Meghna. Good afternoon, everyone. So somehow I am in the midst of some storm and very heavy rainfall. I'm in Mumbai, so not sure if others are experiencing that, but yeah. So let me share my screen and thanks, Meghna, for the brief introduction. I'll of course try to share more details about the digital transformation deals and operating models that have been working. So yeah, the topic for today is multi-speed IT operating models. It's very close to my heart, and I've been working with a lot of our customers in Capgemini, coming up with variety of operating models, and I'm sure as people who have been working in the IT world, this is a topic which is always on the move, I would say. So first, let's spend some times in talking about the traditional operating models that we have, always seen and, are very common. So the first one is the centralized operating model, the top-down approach, the old organizations which used to have, decision making flowing from top down. It's always good to have that organization when you want to have full control. Of course, there are drawbacks to that is that, the needs as the organization grows globally, the needs of specific geographies or the localization requirements tend to not get catered, and then that give rise to the decentralized way of operations. So you have kind of a model which is where organizations are either segregated or organized by business units, or they are organized by the products that they are selling, or they are organized by geographies and so on. So the whole intent was to go as close as possible to the market. So that was decentralized. And again, it had its own challenges, right? When you become decentralized, then the control, the central control or the guidelines or the frameworks are not there. Everyone starts creating their own frameworks. Everyone start taking their own decisions on variety of things, right? It could be the applications or the ERP modules or the ERP landscape that they want to do. What are the hyperscalers that they want to invest? So you'll actually see a lot of plethora of options that start getting inbuilt, and then over a period of time, this also becomes a problem, right? Because there are a lot of overheads, redundant applications, redundant processes, and so on. So what gave rise is kind of something in between. We call a hybrid, or you can say hub and spoke model. Again, very common, still traditional, but widely used because it has a mix, the best of both the worlds. You have controls at the top, driving from the top, and then there are certain, key templates being designed and then rolled out to, the individual business units or geographies, and they have got some power, some authority to make customizations as per their need. So that's the third model, which is your hub and spoke model. Let me pull the point. Yeah. And then, of course, network model is something which you would see, which is kind of common in all the three: centralized, decentralized, as well as hub and spoke. What it means is you are largely interacting with a lot of, partners, suppliers, vendors out of the ecosystem. Okay, so naturally, most of the organizations have got huge dependencies on these players. But then, companies like Uber or Airbnb, right? They solely depend on this collaboration with their partners. They can't survive. It's only with their partners or the suppliers or the customers is how they grow. So some of the new businesses have in fact opted, to pick up some of these traditional models. But for today, the topic is slightly different. It is going to delve into more into the agile ways of working. So from my last 3 years of experience of working on multiple RFPs, I've been seeing that more than 80% of the RFPs have got a customer requirement to move to agile, move to DevOps ways of working. And that is the reason these are the emerging operating models, which is the product based models, which are aligned to the business product groups. Yeah. And the new one, which today we are going to kind of deep dive, it's kind of an extension to the product based model, but next level of development where I have tried to introduce agility into the ways of working, and which can be used as a catalog of services and can be used to fit in most of the portfolios that I've seen. So it is something which can be useful in most of the organizations. So emerging product based and speed based. So we'll try to focus on the speed based operating model for today. Okay, so let's deep dive into a little bit about what were the challenges of the traditional IT operating model. So that will help you actually realize the benefits that will come in the subsequent slides. So of course, your traditional models were working very well. Yeah, unless corporations like Apple and now Meta and then even Teslas of the world, they're kind of pushing for product releases at the speed of lightning, you can say that, right? And the traditional models were more about, you have a separate team who is doing operations, separate team who is focusing on projects and enhancements, and then there used to be a lot of discussions whether you're working on the operations or the enhancements. So the talent wars is what used to happen. People who used to work in projects had got always wanted to continue working in projects, and then those who were working in the operations side thought that projects is something they want to move towards, but they never used to get the best of both the worlds. And then, of course, there was this agility part where then, customers had started defining that a lot of the transaction-based systems are, less agile, and then the ones which are more customer facing needs speed, needs more enhancements, needs more releases and so on. But then eventually there was high level of dependency anyway on the transaction systems, because you are going to pull the data. Your data lake and the data warehouse was anyway going to reside with your transaction systems. So there was still a lot of dependencies between this fast moving systems as well as the transaction systems. And then, of course, there is so if you know the Gartner world, they call they differentiate any application portfolio in three segments. They call system of records, which is the bottommost layer, system of differentiation, which actually kind of differentiates that company's outputs or products or services vis-a-vis their competition. So that's one layer of, you can say, an application stack which sits on your transaction systems. And then the topmost layer is your system of innovation. So these are the high-end, innovative, your GenAIs, your agentic AIs applications, the ones which are talking directly with your end customers, helping you increase your sales and all of those. So earlier these lines were kind of very well differentiated. So as we discussed in the talent was, you have operations team, you have development teams, and maybe you have project teams. That's the third layer. But then now what we are seeing is this line is thinning. So you actually need to have all these three levels tightly integrated, because if you want to pass on business value to the end customer, you can't just rely on your business processes or your business functions. You can't just rely on your transaction systems or your agentic AI systems, because they are all need to talk to each other. Yeah, right from top to bottom. So be it business layer, be it application layer, be it operations layer. So it needs to cut across everything, right? So that's the reason why multi-speed models are now coming into play. And then these are the models which are kind of going to address large part of these needs. So little bit some flavors of each of these. So we will take a look at what are the key characteristics of these multi-speed operating models, and how can you use it when you're designing your multi-speed operating model. And of course, these are all going to be applicable where customers intend to move to agile ways of working, or they are already moved into or matured enough in the agile ways of working. So these operating models, or the multi-speed operating models that we are going to talk from now on, are going to be applicable in those landscapes only. Yeah, of course, some bits and pieces of these options from the catalog can be used in the traditional ways as well. But this gives a mechanism for you to kind of fit the entire application portfolio in one of the catalog items or the other. Yeah. So now what are the characteristics? Agility, of course. Yes, because that's where your DevOps, agile scale, developments, your is going to sit. So the more the agile, the best is the fitment to this operating model. Then is, of course, business criticality. The ones which are going to be more business critical needs to have the best of the attention. Of course, it's not that those who are not agile but still business critical do not need focus area. But yeah, of course, we have some different operating model design to address to this need as well. Then the maturity of the landscape, that's important, because this model also talks about the ownership, okay, the delivery ownership, whether it should be with the vendor, whether it should be with the purchaser, or whether it should be an hybrid delivery ownership model. And it also depends about how matured that entire system, entire landscape, or the entire product group, or that subgroup of that product is. And based on that, you can decide on which operating model fits best in that case. Yeah. Then we are seeing that most of the fast moving, or you can say the developments that are happening, at least in the customer facing side, is where new age technologies are coming into play. Hyperscalers are getting a large chunk of business in that space. And because of this nicheness of technologies, nicheness of the emerging trends that are coming into the market, I think there are hardly any single vendor who can fulfill all the requirements of large customers. Yeah. So at the end of the day, what customers do is they want to still operate at the high end of the technology spectrum with multiple vendors so that they have got options, right? They have got options to select, with whom to work, or they have options to, add in more development requirements to their kitty, take in more work, add more new age development features and speed up the release cycle. So this is another area which is of course going to be addressed. It can be addressed by large players like us to a point of time, but if there are some localized requirement, maybe there is a reason why the nicheness or the reason why customers still want to have a variety of options under their hand. And then the development parts, of course, the lesser the developments, the more the stable the environment, naturally, because you're not introducing new codes to the existing code. You are not making more changes. The stable the system, the less the bugs that are going to naturally get developed, yeah, or created. So the lesser the developments, the better is the stability. Likewise, the maturity of the landscape is also better, and so on. So some of the catalog items are also catering to these development needs. Okay. So what are the different items within this operating model catalog? So what I've done is trying to plot, okay, over here is on your left hand side. If you see, these are the operation space. So you can say this is the application operation space. Then this is including the application maintenance up to level 1 and level 2 support. Then these are your level 3 support, your developments and the project work that is happening. Okay. Then you have typically, a lot of services which will be common across all your operating models. So these are basically, it could be your security services, it could be your monitoring services, it could be your network services and so on. So there is a layer which ideally in your operating model, which will cut across the shared services platform. So this is what you see under the operation. Some part of it is being addressed as a horizontal layer. Yeah. Then the leftmost part is what we call a managed services layer. So this is something which, as per the earlier characteristics, is the most stable. Uh, Less number of developments, ideally no developments, right? Or the applications which are in your portfolio, which are generating less number of effort, maybe less than 10 tickets in a year, yeah, or they are closer to end of life, yeah, and they can be managed by the supplier and delivered in a SLA based format. So you can have multiple SLAs which will cut across your development or operation need, but then the vendor can still, provide services based on some fixed set of SLAs. So this is one part, managed service. The second part is your managed DevOps. Again, there is a slight variation in the concept over here. Is there is an option that some of the customers still want to do end-to-end operations as well as projects, but they want to have let the vendor control it. Yeah, they don't want to get involved in it. So these are the ones which are sitting in between the more stable, and then the ones which are kind of product groups which have started shifting to the left. So they are kind of done with all the developments, major developments you can see. And then the level of development is coming down. The level of agility required for this product group is again slightly coming down compared to what it was maybe a quarter back or 6 months back. And these are the ones where customer now don't want to get involved on their own. So they don't want to spend a lot of effort in these types of product groups. So these are the ones which has a slightly different color than your managed services, but sitting in between what is managed by the vendor and what is managed by the customer. Yeah. So this is again a whole end-to-end ownership lying with the supplier, but with the ownership or the guidance that is given by a purchaser. Then these are the two parts which are called DevOps, semi-classic, and DevOps fully classic DevOps, which we all know. So in DevOps semi-classic, customer can take, and these are of course some proposals, and I have used it in a variety of form. This was developed for one of our large automotive customers, but then there have been multiple variations which can come out of it based on how the portfolio is there. But then this DevOps semi-classic is the one where the customer wants to retain the developments and the project ownership completely and give away the operations to the supplier to manage. So they still want to retain the top part. And then this is more about your entire services, which is a pure DevOps mode pod-based system aligned with the end-to-end product delivery mechanism, where you also have your L1, L2, L3, whatever, team sitting in one single pod, maybe shared across pods, but then sitting in one single pod. So these are the four, by and large, multi-speed options that can actually be used to fit any portfolio of your customer. Okay. And using some of these characteristics which we had seen earlier, you can try to qualify which application or which product group can fit in which. And then these are it will throw up some additional constructs on the commercial front as well. We will touch base upon that in the subsequent slide. But yeah, I think these are some of the definitions of each of these categories. So as I said, managed services is where the vendor is completely taking the ownership and providing services SLA based on managed DevOps. It is again managed by vendor, but with some intervention of the purchaser. This is a hybrid model with the purchaser owning the product projects and the developments, and the vendor or the supplier owning the operations. And this is pure end to end, where I had said that these are typically very fast moving agile product groups where customer has got nicheness, wants very high end technologies introduced into the product groups, and then multiple vendors are playing in that ecosystem. All right. So these are this is the catalog of the operating models, and then some more detailing on how each of these model gets differentiated through the characteristics. So this will help you map the product category to what it will ideally fall. So if you see agility, if it is low, ideally it is managed services, the maximum, the highest, if it is there, then it should ideally go to DevOps Classic. But this decision is also in combination with other parameters. Yeah, like business criticality. Of course, criticality can be low, medium, high. In any of these cases, it's may have the lowest weightage in all these characteristics that have been listed here. But landscape maturity, for example, if it is very high, your vendors, suppliers can manage it. I don't think customers would be interested to, spend a lot of time if they are not agile, not very business critical, and it is highly matured system. I am sure they want to move it out from their radar, make the vendors give the services, run the show, business as usual. We don't need, they need not worry about it. Similarly, if the nicheness of the technology that we were talking, if it is high, it is very likely that customer would like to retain the control, the choice, because if there is one single vendor who is in that play, then they are naturally going to demand high rates. So we have seen that that is the typical choice when it comes to this space of DevOps classic in nature. Customer generally, or you can say DevOps semi-classic to DevOps classic, they want to retain the control. They want to, run the show. We all know there are a lot of industries who have started back insourcing, right? A classic example is an automotive industry, right? They want to retain their IPs. They are moving to electric. They are no more company which is known. It's more software driven company now, or at least more or less, a lot of the players are heading towards a software driven vehicle. Autonomous vehicle is what they're looking at. They need to have the IPs. Insourcing, setting up of GCCs is a new trend now for some of these sectors. And I think that is also going to make us as suppliers, see that a lot of demand will also be there in this DevOps semi-classes and classic and DevOps classic space. Whereas some of these large players also know that they may not need to get involved in all of these product groups or product categories which are not matured enough. Then they will still want to work closely with their vendors on SLA driven services. But there are a lot of customers who have already started asking for rate cards on the niche technologies that they're working on. Yeah. Again, developments is similar to agility. You can, they go hand in hand. And of course, there could be couple of more characteristics that you can add in based on the portfolio that you're working with the customer. But by and large, this is the logic. If it is going to be more agile, it will fit somewhere in DevOps semi-classic or DevOps classic. And if it is already matured, going towards end of life, less number of developments and so on, then it is going to sit somewhere between managed service and managed DevOps. Yeah. To continue the key characteristics, managed services, yeah, ideally dev and ops team could be separate. They may be one team, okay, but it's largely driven by the vendor. Customer generally won't be worried about what we are doing, but they will just manage the show by driving, taking care and monitoring the SLAs provided by the vendor. I've clubbed managed DevOps and semi-classic DevOps. So they dev and ops could be separate or could be in single team, and largely it is driven by a vendor, yeah, and controlled by the customer. And then output is as agreed with the customer. It could be it depends on, but it is going to be aligned to the product relevant KPIs, the product group that is going to be supported. And finally, in the DevOps classic, you have one single team structured in the for each of the product groups, one pod team, as we all know. And it is a customer driven prod team. People, there's no line between ops and dev, same team working on everything, and they get opportunity to work on both the service lines. And yeah, again, I think the output is driven by the number of the KPIs that has been agreed with the product team. Ownership, we spoke, vendor managed, prioritized by purchaser. This is for the central managed and semi-classic DevOps. And then DevOps classics are the one where the product groups controlled by the purchaser, owned and managed, and they just take the services from multiple vendors. Commercially managed services, ideally it is SLA based, fixed price or fixed capacity. For managed DevOps, semi-classic DevOps, it is either fixed capacity if it is known, or fixed capacity converted to a pod-based pricing. I think this is another commercial construct that we have been seeing. In fact, some of the pod-based capacities, the customers also tell what are the sizes. So it comes into small pod, medium size pod, and so on. And then DevOps Classic is where largely It is time and material, but it could also be a mix of, let's say, if they want one vendor to take ownership of one pod, then it can be a pod price. And then some of the pods could be a multi-vendor delivery mechanism with time and material. Yeah. And how do you evolve this entire story? So naturally it is shift left. So ideally this is the top end of the product category, which is the most mobile, most agile, correct? Having the most developments, but over a period of time, naturally some of the product groups would ease up little bit. So ideally the customer would be looking at transforming this portfolio. So even when you are proposing in your large RFPs, which has a 5 year or 8 year duration, then you should be also looking at optimizing and further rationalizing this portfolio by already proposing some movements from DevOps classic to DevOps semi-classic, and maybe manage DevOps to manage services and so on. So you're actually reducing and optimizing the cost baseline as well. So yeah, I think the intent is to free up the resources of the customer, focus on let them focus only on the most important elements that are value added, and then try to get more work to suppliers like us over a period of time. So in short, this was the catalog of the operating models that has been designed. And as I said, there could be multiple variations of this model, and you can play around with the characteristics also. It is kind of plug and play. And ideally, I've seen that at least for the last 6 or 7 RFPs, I was able to fit portfolios, 500 plus applications into this catalog very easily. And customers appreciated that, with the selection of the characteristics and the portfolio that they had, we are actually proposing back to them that you should not focus on going completely to the agile world, but do it in a fashion where you don't need agile and DevOps in all your product categories. Then don't need to spend all your money there. So you still can optimize your entire portfolio spend. And this is one way of presenting the entire portfolio back to the customer, and have some variations and uniqueness into your commercial constructs as well. Yeah. So yeah, with that, I will stop sharing, and I'm open for any questions. So if you can raise your hand. I don't see any questions in the chat box, but you can raise your hand if you have any specific questions.
Abhijit Chandra here. I
Yeah,
have
Chandra.
a question. So the thing is, currently, whenever we are working in a client environment, it's always a multi-vendor environment, meaning the client or the customer doesn't want to be limited to a particular vendor, at least, right? In that case, so how it will be easy for us to move forward from the DevOps classic to the managed services? The movement might have
Yeah.
to also account for the other vendors for us to move towards a more mature model, right, Abhijit?
Yeah.
They don't want a
Uh,
vendor lock-in kind of a situation.
Yeah. So, Chandra, see, you won't see a case. Maybe you are operating in a zone which is already towards the right-hand side of this catalog. Okay. Ideally, managing multiple vendors is an headache, if you ask me, for anyone. Even for us as supplier, if we want to interact with, some product vendors, some subcontractors, and as dependencies with multiple people, then it's an headache. It's a cost which is which is not required. So if we are in a position to convince the customer that if you are consolidating the vendor, in fact vendor consolidation is one major exercise which a lot of customers have started taking. And if there is no need for a multi-vendor environment, they should move to a single vendor environment where ownership, the end-to-end accountability is with single vendor. So that is how we should be trying to push the story. And then you can qualify some of the product groups which can actually be taken over, let's say by Capgemini, where you see that you have a presence of more than 70% or 80% in one single product group. You know what developments, what's the trend, it is kind of getting stable, there's no a major volatility in that area. Then you can say that, okay, this is one pod we want to shift, you don't worry about this, but move the other vendors, we take end-to-end ownership. Okay, it is on us, on Capgemini to own it. I think it is going to save cost for the customer. They can also free up the resources. I think that's the shift left approach. Eventually, I think a lot of customers do it on large portfolios. But yeah, I think this is the business case is about consolidating the vendors, passing on the synergies back to them, having less headache of managing different, and of course, you give them services based on SLAs, so it's not that they're not going to lose anything at the end of the day, right?
Thanks, Abhijit.
Yeah, thanks, Chandra. Manohar.
Yeah, Abhijit, I just wanted to have some clarification. Now, as you mentioned, we have to go shift flat. What is the industry standard? Like, what is the expectation from the clients that we have to be on the? They expect us to be on the right side, or it's our proactive approach
No.
to
So
for
yeah,
left.
that's a very good question. See, every customer is unique. Okay. And as we had seen in the traditional models, even in those traditional models, you had these three layers of, it was just vertically stacked up. We have now stacked it up horizontally. Your system of innovation, system of differentiation, and then the system of records, right? So you look at it in that fashion. These are the most stable, then little bit mid-stable or mid-agile, and then the most agile. It's simply put it in that way. Now, if you look at very specific companies, like we spoke about the Ubers of the world or the Swiggies of the world, they may all sit in your left rightmost quadrant because they are all agile, they are all new businesses. They need to keep on bringing in new elements, new things for the customers day in, day out, right? They can't, or else they'll get killed by competition. As simple as that. And they operate at, so for example, Subway, one of our largest customers, so they are operating with very few applications, right? Hardly a dozen applications. So there are companies who are in the rightmost stack. Maybe they will not shift entirely to your left, but there could be some elements or pieces that can shift to the left. Yeah. And that is how, if they, as they mature one by one, they can start shifting to the left.
Shifting left, like as you said, I think in the slide it was mentioned when
Yeah.
we keep both the development and operational separately. Okay, that is the entire left side what you are telling, right? So, but there
Yeah.
is when we in the real time when we work, we are separating out development and the operational part, right? So there is a gap, and typically what I was assuming that when we have this both together, then it is more efficient way of productive
Yeah.
way of working, because both it's one team who works on these things. But here what we see, it's the best thing is to go on left. It is best thing for the client from cost perspective, or uh, for like, I mean, the service based companies for us, which is going to be beneficial. I mean, in that terms, how we see this.
So, see, if they are already operating in a DevOps fashion, even after they mature or when they shift left, ideally they should not split Dev and Ops. The way of operation should still continue in the DevOps form. Maybe the pod team size goes down. Maybe they were earlier 10-member team. Now, because the developments have gone down, they have more matured, operations are relatively less. That 10-member team can become 7-member or 5-member team. And then plus the ownership is shifting from them driving the entire show, owning it by time and material. They can push the ownership to the vendor, reduce the cost, and then start pushing them to have more automation, further optimization. So if they're already in DevOps, ideally you should not split it in ops and dev. The maximum you can do within the ops space, if there are elements which are common and cutting across your horizontal service layers, then max you can try to put some of those elements there, right? But otherwise you still continue in your earlier form. Only thing kind of start reducing and optimizing your size of the pods. Maybe that answers your question.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, thank you.
Welcome. Anyone else? Okay. If no more questions, Meghna, over to you.
Okay. Thank you all for attending today's webinar. We hope you found the session insightful and valuable. A special thanks to our speaker, Abhijit Sawanth, for sharing his expertise and experiences with us. We look forward to seeing you at our future events, and have a great day.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
you.
Thank you,
Have a
Abhijit.
good day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Abhijit.